Hi, hello and welcome. Um, Today I wanted to review Gerald's Game. It's a Netflix movie that came out recently, and it's great. Um, in this first part, I just kind of want to focus more on this movie, and then I want to do a second part that deals more with like the general problem with depictions of sexual violence in entertainment. Because this movie is good. It's one of those great Stephen King novel adaptations, which pretty much all Stephen King adaptations are great. And I think that's because all of his books, it seems, I've never actually read them, they seem to end on high notes with the characters growing and conquering, which is, much better than a crappy horror story where everyone just dies or whatever. So yeah, spoiler alert. Just in general, by the way, I said that in the title, but just in case. Um, this movie is extremely psychological. It's pretty much a one location movie, which I love because movies like that have to be super psychological and character exploring. And that's what I want in a movie. Like Devil, Phone Booth, um, even The Shallows, or like that recent other shark movie, 47 Feet Down, something like that. Yeah, I love one location psychological character development movies. And this movie deals almost, or actually, like exclusively, with the psychological problems in Jessie, the main character, that stemmed from a single event in her childhood, her father sexually assaulting her. That's hard to say out loud. Um, it's just, right? Am I the only one who feels like even just saying something like that out loud hurts? I think even saying the word rape hurts. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. That's actually a reassurance. I'm sorry, I'm a little sick still. But it's this movie kind of gives me the reassurance that I'm not alone in like this seriousness with which I take sexual assault. Because when Gerald, acted out his rape fantasy, Jessie reacted the way anyone with real imagination and empathy would react, regardless of whether they'd actually been raped, which Jessie had not. Um, uh, it was a real enough thing to her that she freaked out. And it should be a real enough thing to everyone that they would freak out. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't have good imaginations, and therefore, um, if they haven't been raped, they don't take rape as seriously as they should, and wouldn't consider it as big a deal as it was when Gerald was acting out his rape fantasy. But Stephen King apparently has a good enough imagination, or had a good enough imagination when he wrote this book to get a lot of details right. Maybe he just did a lot of research. I have more problems with other Stephen King adaptations that I don't feel get the feelings of girls who have been sexually assaulted or just assaulted by their parents right. Like It. Cough, cough. um, I don't know. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of research recently into narcissistic parents slash families lately, because I'm realizing that's what I grew up in. But I wouldn't have known to call it narcissism or abuse before. I would have just known that I relate to Jessie's family, with her mom being weirdly unreasonable about stupid little things like Jessie not wanting to go out on a boat or liking her dad better. Because, the mom wasn't concerned about that for the right reasons. I think she was jealous. And parents should not be jealous of their children. But that's, something that happens in narcissistic families. So, yeah. It is common for people from narcissistic lineage to learn to block out problems like Jessie did. She retreated into her mind as a self-defense mechanism that she learned in early childhood. So that's something this movie really got right. Also with her mom, just basically choosing not to see what was going on with Jessie and her dad. And with Jessie having to step up and be an adult before she should have, because someone had to protect her younger siblings and it wasn't going to be the adults. So that's also something that the people behind this movie got right. Maybe it wasn't just Stephen King, maybe it was also the directors or the director and the writers on this movie. There was a really well put line. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you from monsters turn out to be monsters. That's something that I've known for a very long time, and it hurts. And this movie does a great job of showing how it hurts. I'm sure Jessie never felt safe again in her childhood. She had to learn to be hyper-vigilant to protect herself and her sister because she could never be sure that her dad wouldn't do the same thing again or do something worse. And those psychological wounds and learned unhealthy patterns carried on into her adulthood. So I like that Jessie developed so much as a character. But on a side note, perhaps the one problem I have with this movie is that it ends with Jessie writing a letter to her 12-year-old self, saying that young Jessie is the only one who will understand, so she had to write the letter to her. Now that's really sad. I mean, you could see it as empowering and as promoting a message of independence and self-reliance and girl power in a way. It's just that I disagree that you only need yourself. I do think that no one is an island. Sometimes you have to be for short periods of time, but just like this movie showed with Jessie talking to her younger self, it's incredibly healing to talk to someone else who understands, but does your past self really count? Come on. I feel like, couldn't they have given Jessie a new love interest, like a healthy relationship or something at the end? I think it's actually sort of a depressing message that only you can understand you. If I had written this book, or any book about, a child who was abused, who grew up, and I did write a book about this, shameless plug, it's called Like Blood. I would have shown how vital it is to have another person to talk to. Sorry, anyway. And the thing that makes this movie tolerable for me is that the whole movie focuses on this one really deep wound in Jessie, and I think it deserves the whole movie. I think wounds like this, when depicted in media, always deserve the whole movie. So this brings me to my problem in general with depictions of sexual violence in entertainment, which I'll get to in part 2. So let me know what you thought about Gerald's game in the comments below, and I'll see you in part 2.